your information. Do not just share immediately. Okay? And so, what do? You need to play the fundamental roles of facilitating, coaching, organizing, and evaluating learning and its effectiveness. And you need to give students more opportunities to solve problems, to make decisions, and to develop higher order thinking skills. So really giving them problems, let them solve, making their own decisions. So for example, in terms of projects, you can ask them to decide what are the projects you can guide them to make their own decisions in terms of what are projects that are meaningful rather than immediately assign. Okay, let's go now to learning to do. So here, very important is learning to do is actually preparing them for the world of work. And what is important here is that you just don't teach skills, no, but rather competence and higher order skills and soft skills, they call it. Because the world of work will change so rapidly that you cannot, that the skills we are teaching our students this year, okay, maybe passe, maybe 4 years from now, by the time they graduate, the world of work has changed. So what is important for us as values education teachers, we teach them, as I said, the soft skills of communicating effectively with others, working together as teams, okay, social skills to build meaningful interpersonal relations, and being able to manage conflict, resolve or manage conflict. So that is very important. So even in our own classroom, we should help them manage conflict, and that is a very important role that the values education teacher can do. And very important, developing skills for a variety wisely. So this can be practiced in the classroom. And very important is developing effective interpersonal skills, and the values education teacher here can really develop all this through exercises, okay, through modeling as well, and in the lessons. No, look at this. These are all values, no, and these are all putting values into practice. And effective interpersonal social skills. Okay, learning to live together. This is also very important. It's really developing an understanding of others and their history, and working together in terms of interdependence, and coming up with common projects so that we can manage conflicts in an intelligent and peaceful way. Okay, and see, we see two themes: discovery of others and experience of state shared purposes. And you see all these values that we can facilitate in the classroom. And when we talk about learning to live together, it's really appreciating first our own identity, whether it's our own personhood, our local identity, our regional identity, and local identity, then appreciating others, okay? And when we appreciate others, we develop the values of respect, cooperation, tolerance, and the sense of global interconnectedness. And you will notice all of these are actually reflected in the Philippine framework for ESP. And understanding universal values, also understanding the different identities that we may have. And very important, aside from understanding, we need to be able to act. And so that means we need to have the capacity to act collaboratively and responsibly. So teachers, make sure you have a peaceful classroom. And then you offer opportunities for students to experience learning in varied contexts, and give them real life issues that they can analyze, and then look into, revisit assumptions, power relations, and support learners to establish community-based action research or service learning projects. This is for the senior high school, this last one. Okay, and finally, we have learning to be. So this is actually learning to be human, making them, our, our, our learners become imaginative and creative, okay, as well as developing critical learning and independent judgment, and developing personal commitment and responsibility. Notice the theme of critical thinking, independent judgment, personal commitment, responsibility, interdependence is really across these pillars of learning. Okay, and this is what some the psychologists would suggest: self-knowledge through mindfulness, paying attention to our current experience and observing it in a non-judgmental manner. If you are mindful, you reflect on how you have been responding or acting to in terms of what's happening to you on a daily basis. Okay, and then you also learning to be, you engage our students in the process of values clarification to identify values. Okay, so educators, it's very important to help people, young people, develop a healthy self-concept, because that's where it comes from, or a healthy personhood, and then present alternatives and problems and help them learn how to evaluate, guide them to clarify their priorities and values. And you will see that in the framework later on, ESP framework, we see this also under the guidance framework. Okay, so learning to be is actually living a meaningful life. Okay, so this is the way it looks like, lifelong learning with the pillars of learning. So that means we need to really participate proactively in a rapidly changing world, develop and improve our competencies, lifelong learning nga eh. Become aware of recent scientific discoveries and learn to use them, and deal with problems encountered in our personal and professional lives. And we should understand our past, very important, and its influence on the present and the future. They say that Filipinos have very short memories. We don't know how to use the lessons of history. And I think to some extent we are correct, you know, there's some truth to that. So let's stop that. Let's understand the past and use the lessons of the past to build on the present and the future. And then very important, discover the wealth of our culture and other cultures, develop peaceful and sustainable lifestyle, and remember that we are not only just citizens of our country, but we are also global citizens, and let us advocate for peace, human rights, democracy, and sustainable development. Then I'd like to end this first portion with the holistic approach to teaching and learning, ESP and GMRC, which is actually very much rooted in UNESCO's lifelong learning. So this is what you call the teaching learning cycle. Whenever you teach your subject, it has to have a cycle. And the cycle is many times we stop in terms of knowing and understanding, but we forget the valuing and the acting. So because if we use that cycle, these are the integrated learning outcomes of knowledge, understanding, values and attitudes, skills, competencies, and behavior. And we say that there are three levels: the conceptual level, the affective level, and the active level. So these are in the conceptual level, we have knowing, we start with knowing, which is mostly learners learning more about specific facts, concepts, and information. Then later, it has to go into understanding, so it can lead to insight, okay? And they understand why certain facts are such, because we want them to be socially aware and have social consciousness. And then valuing is making sure that what you learn and what you understand are now going to be reflected into one's experiences and reflect and internalized. And it means that we need to make sure that the affective faculties are utilized so that these the learning, the values are chosen, priced, and acted upon. Okay, and then finally, the concepts and values that are internalized ultimately lead to action. So here we have to make sure that there is an action component so that um, the values that we have been talking about are expressed in communication skills, improvement, better decision making, non-violent conflict resolution, and critical thinking, and all of that. Okay, so that's the first part. Um, so far, so good ba? Okay ba tayo, my dears? Okay, so I will now
Yes, ma'am, clear.
Okay, sige, kasi we have only very little time. I hope you don't mind, I might go over baka mga 10:45 tayo matapos, 10:45, no? Okay, let's now go to, oops. Okay, let's go to the next. Okay, now let's talk about the Philippine framework for ESP. Now, many of you may know this already, so this is just a review, okay? And I also put some examples so that you will be it will be clearer to you. But so if you think you want to add, just unmute yourself and you add, okay? Okay. Okay, and then we can have some open forum at the end. Okay, so who are our pupils? Who are our students? When I was talking about Gen Z and Gen Alpha, they may not be the ones. I mean, those characteristics may not be in our students, because we have to accept it that our students may not be as financially capable as the other students we're talking about in the world. So when we're talking about the characteristics of Gen Z and Gen Alpha, these may be these may be children or young people who have uh, the luxury of having internet, having gadgets, okay, having time. Our students are not all like that. So we have also to be very clear about the context of our students, and you are the best. You are the best people who will know, okay, where our students are. Now, according to Argel Pingot, Dr. Argel Bingot is the APNIB regional coordinator in Davao. This is what he found out. He said that our students, some of them are passive, most of them have a simple lifestyle, but there are those who are daring. They're hardworking, they're tolerant, they're resilient. Many of them are poor and financially challenged. And some, maybe many, are reactive. But there are resourceful students. Some of them are humble. Some of them have low self-esteem. So this is a very important aspect. We need to make sure that we are going to develop their self-esteem, no, so that they are they have a self-esteem that is valued. Okay, some are risk takers. Many are survivors. They're able to survive the day-to-day grind. They have a sense of humor. They're carefree, persevering. Some are meek. There are also mediocre because of inadequate basic educational background. We also have those who are receptive to change. And then there are also with extreme intellectual capacity. They're enthusiastic, okay? Some are just thinking about the me. So according to him, our students are like fruit salad. Some are different, okay? Some are sweet, some are not, okay? Or chop suey, okay? Different types. So you are the ones who know who our students are, and therefore it is important for you to adjust your teaching to who our students are. But what is important is that they are the center of our teaching. And this is what the framework says. Okay? So if you look at the framework, familiar ba itong framework? Yes, no? Familiar. If you look at the framework, it's really the student who is in the middle of that all. And in terms of the indicator is that our students need to be responsible decision makers and act towards the common good and welfare of all. And therefore, our goal here is developing the learner as an ethical person and making sure that they find meaning in life and their role in Philippine society so they can contribute to a nation which espouses truth, freedom, justice, and love. But even before we can develop that, it is important that we develop their personhood. So that is why our the name of ESP is actually Education for Personhood. So that's a beautiful thing about it. Okay. So there are 5 macro skills that our learners need to develop. And this is where you as ESP teachers or GMRC teachers will have to facilitate. So understanding, they need to be able to understand concepts and principles. Okay. They need to be able steps all towards moral living. Okay, they also need to know how to ask help and whom to ask help, how to ask guidance, who are more knowledgeable and experienced. Okay, and here very important, they have to know how to weigh information for the different types of media. So this is where I was talking about media literacy. And of course, they need to know, you have to determine self-determination, making their own decisions, okay? Independent decisions, and action. So this action, how do they now live out the values and virtues? How do now apply concepts, principles, and values that they learn from concrete life situations? So these are the skills that you need to develop in your everyday teaching. And so it's quite a big, values educators, you really have a very important role in the education of our learners, especially now in the 21st century. Okay, so of course, you know that there are 4 value themes per grade level. So first is responsibility to oneself as a family member, because we as Filipinos is very important. The family is very important to us, and therefore we need to also develop that love and respect for the family here, and the interpersonal relations and family stability, and work ethic for national development and world cooperation, and of course very important, valuing God and the preference for the good, maka-Diyos. Okay, and we have the 7 core values that we teach across also, whether it be taught in terms of concepts, but we hope it is taught more in terms of action, okay, reflection, contemplation. So we have health and harmony with nature, truth and respect, spirituality, peace and justice, love and kindness, sustainable develop, pagkamaka-Pilipino, and global unity. Okay? So each one, these are the definitions. You will notice that health is now holistic health, and it's not only physical, but also includes mental, social, and spiritual well-being. And very important is the emphasis on mental health, particularly because we've seen quite a number of our youth becoming depressed and even resorting to suicide. And very important is also the harmony with nature, that we understand that there is a symbiotic relationship between humans and the natural environment. Next is truth and respect. And the love for truth implies the tireless and enthusiastic search for knowledge in its all forms. And very important is that the truth is really for the development of the human person. And I think what is so important now, especially the 21st century, and with social media as another form of media, we need to make sure that it's really truth that's out there and it's not fake truth. So you need to make sure that we do help our students discern what is truth and what is false. Falsehood has no place in values education. Okay? And of course, respect is important because we acknowledge the dignity of persons, the sense of worth of persons, and their human rights. So the very important are the fundamental freedoms, equality for all, and the fulfillment of basic needs. Okay, then spirituality. Spirituality does not only mean being religious, but actually having a vision and sense of the divine. And it refers to a spiritual journey that has three directions: the inward journey, the outward journey, and the forward journey. Okay, the inward journey is usually what we know, our inner relationship with the source of life. Okay. Boy, I don't know what happened that. Okay, next, peace and justice. So very important. Peace is the presence of respect, tolerance, trust, mutual understanding, cooperation, justice, and freedom. And justice is the cornerstone of peace, which is based on the recognition of the University of Human Rights. And I think this is one of the challenges that we are experiencing in the Philippines in terms of human rights violations. So this national phenomenon of human rights violations are actually a very good subject matter for our students. Don't shy away from topics like this, because this is where you develop students who will appreciate justice, who will understand why it's important to even question certain ways, of doing things. Okay, and of course, very important is love and kindness. So this includes love for oneself as well as for others, and it's loving one from within and extending to nature that of others, and kindness as an expression of love. And of course, sustainable development, looking into environmental protection, equitable sharing of social and economic well-being, self-efficiency in all levels, and that we need to have sustainable development because we want to ensure the welfare of present and future generations. And we have Philippine nationalism and global unity, love for the Philippines, okay? And a deep concern for present and future of the country and its people. And inspiring your students to work together Okay, and expressing this through engaged and responsible citizenship. And as values education teachers, we need to show this. We need to be engaged. We need to be responsible citizens. Okay, and we can do that. We can do that. We can do that even in our personal lives, aside from our professional lives. And global unity, meaning that we recognize there are many commonalities that bind us despite our being different. So we have common basic needs and aspirations, and we need to be sure that we commit to international understanding and global peace. And now let's go to the philosophical foundation. Okay, here we see the foundation here at the bottom is the philosophy of personalism or personhood. Okay, so personalism is our philosophical foundation. And it really says that personhood is the fundamental notion that gives meaning to all of reality and constitutes its supreme value. So when we are talking about ESP, that means that our foundation for our education is really developing the personhood of our learners. And the personhood means that there is dignity in that human person, and that dignity merits unconditional respect. And there, we also need to acknowledge the moral nature of the person, or the person is the subject and object of free activity. And the human being is a being for others. It's not only a being for oneself, but it is a being for others. When our personhood is developed, the ultimate goal is also being for others. And therefore, relationships are essential to our learners' personhood. So this is personalism. So if you want to read more, go ahead. Look into the philosophy of personalism or personhood. Okay. Next is the theoretical framework. So we draw from different theories. In this case, 6 theories. So we have the theory of value ethics, the theory of virtue ethics, the theory of value ethics, the social learning theory, experiential learning, constructivism, and the theory of career development. So let's look at that one by one. So the theory of value ethics really says that it is important to develop good habits of character. And so the GMRC teachers, you resonate with this, no? So good habits of character. And a virtue is an excellent trait of character. So it is a disposition, okay? Well entrenched in its possessor, well entrenched in the individual, to notice, expect, value, feel, desire, choose, act, and react in certain characteristic ways. So to possess a virtue is the wholehearted acceptance of a distinct range of considerations as reasons for action. So if you have the virtue of wisdom, therefore you need to act. Okay, that's the reason. Okay, somebody who is wise will act accordingly in terms of showing that wisdom. Okay, so this is what you call a virtue. It's an excellent trait of character. Not all of us will have that virtue. In other words, we are trying to develop that virtue, and therefore we act accordingly in developing that virtue. Okay. Next one is the theory of value ethics. According to Hall, the guru of values development, values are the ideals that give significance to our lives, that are reflected through the priorities that we choose and that we act on consistently and repeatedly. Okay? So, it says here, Values that affect the moral quality of a person are understood traditionally as virtues. So there are certain what you would call moral values for the theory of value ethics. That means these are understood as virtues. And value ethics means that behavior of a person is guided by values. And values are a way of understanding both a person's inner life and one's external behavior. Sorry ha, wrong spelling yung behavior dyan ha. I better note that. Value ethics. Okay. Next. Okay, so we finished the theory of virtue ethics. Second, the theory of value ethics. Third is the social learning theory. Okay, the social learning theory, according to Bandura, psychologist Bandura, social, the human behavior, okay, is explained in terms of interaction between cognitive, behavioral, and environmental influences. And therefore, people learn by observing others' behavior, attitudes, and outcomes of these behaviors. So actually, social learning theory says that the environment is very important as well. So most, according to Bandura, most human behavior is learned observationally through modeling. From observing others, one forms an idea of how new behaviors are performed, and later on later occasions, this coded information serves as a guide for action. So we see, for example, our parents are our models, and therefore children tend to follow their parents. But doesn't mean that only the parents are models. Teachers are models as well. And many times, if you're a loving teacher, okay, if you show your concern for your students really will learn from your behavior. So we have to be very how do you say, we have to make sure that our behavior is one that our students can emulate, can imitate. So we have to be careful. Okay? And therefore, personality is an interaction between three components: the environment, behavior, and the learner's psychological processes, their ability to entertain images in minds and language. So you have to, this social learning theory is very crucial because it makes us also be aware that our behavior can be very crucial in forming the behavior of our learners. So as they say, values are caught. That's a social learning theory. But of course, they can also be taught. Okay? How? Through constructivism. Okay. So here, constructivism, it is an active, contextualized process of constructing knowledge rather than acquiring it. In other words, you give a person, or a person experiences certain happenings or phenomenon in the environment, and this is the way the person learns. Okay, so in other words, it is important that there are given learning situations for them to experience. And that is why many times we should build on the knowledge that the students already have, because they are not blank slates. Okay, past experiences and cultural factors are brought to the classroom, and you have to know what those are. Okay, then finally, the theory of career development. From K to 12, it's important we understand that there is such a lifelong process for those who want to attain major job satisfaction. And this starts in childhood. Okay, according to Ginsberg, 3 stages: fantasy, tentative, and realistic. Or according to Super, okay, there are 5. Okay, these are growth, exploration, establishment, maintenance, and disengagement. So for our students, this would be 3 stages. Okay, while you have another 3 stages. You are in the either in the establishment, the maintenance. Maybe ako lang yatang disengagement. So you are into establishment and maintenance. But our students are in 3 stages: growth, exploration. 2 stages, sorry. Growth and exploration, or in the other one, fantasy, tentative, and realistic. Okay, 17. We already have students who are 17, but they are maybe senior high. Okay, so it's important to know that there are stages of career development so that our students will attain major job satisfaction. Okay, so we already have the 6 theories. Now let's look into the pedagogies, or the approaches, methods, and techniques in ESP. So, okay, so I said 15 more minutes, right? Okay. So moral development through ethical decision making, through problem solving analysis, social emotional learning, experiential learning, career guidance, and values clarification. So how do you now bring, okay, how do you now approach ESP? Knowing that first, your philosophical foundation is personhood, okay, or personalism. And then you have the theories of values, virtue ethics, value ethics, excuse me, okay, constructivism, experiential learning, okay, social learning theory, and theory of career development. And now we now go into bringing it 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So this, when you are in the classroom, you can use this strategies, and I know that there will be, I think that is right, no, Floyd, is that true? That's correct, no, that you will have another session really on approaches, strategies, no?
Yes,
so,
ma'am.
Okay, very good. So this is just a background. So first, moral development through ethical decision making through problem analysis or issues. So very important is, first, you need to make sure that if you are going to develop moral, the moral aspect of the student or our pupils, self-reflection is very important. So it's very important that there's a dialogue between learners and teachers. There's a dialogue between learners, and learner dialogues with her or himself. And how is this done? This is done through real-life moral dilemmas. Okay, an incident in school or something in the news. There's so many things. There are really a lot of moral dilemmas in the news. Okay, and very interesting to learners. So each dilemma must have a conflict that causes the central character to make an action choice. There are no right or wrong choices, but the reason given in support for the choices can vary along a dimension from less adequate, good, to more adequate, better. Okay, so again, very important is that you allow the students to make the choice of action, and you don't say there's a right or wrong, but what is important are the reasons why that action should be taken. So let's have an example based on Kohlberg's stages of moral development. So again, you read on Kohlberg's stages of moral development. So he would say, okay, present appropriate and common real life dilemmas to the students to choose courses of action, and very important, justify their choice. Okay, you have here a friend wanting to copy homework or copy answers during a test. Okay, seeing the star athlete steal a computer and knowing that she or he could not be able to play, help the team win if one told a teacher o ganyan. Okay, what is it? Do you So you ask them to make the choices. What is the action that you will do, and why are you going to take that action? Okay, so there are choices here. So value dilemmas. This is very exciting. You can use this as a group work or something, or when you see something going on in news. No, you can get it from the news. Okay, the next one is social emotional learning. Is the process by which learners develop awareness and management of their emotions. This is particularly important because, our students will need to be able to manage their emotions, especially when they are going to be dealing with others. Okay, so here you're able to develop positive relationships, social awareness, interpersonal skills, and make them practice decision making and responsible behaviors. Okay, example, during a situation that involves solving a common problem among teenagers, these are the steps. Stop, calm down, think before you act, describe the problem and how you feel, set a positive goal, think of many solutions, think ahead about the consequence, go ahead and try the best plan. So you can provide situations, okay, that's a common problem among teenagers. So this is also another strategy that you can do in your lesson. Okay, next, experiential learning. So this is called learning is a process wherein knowledge is created through the transformation of experience. And we start with the concrete experience, observation and reflection, forming abstract concepts, and then testing new situations. The challenge here is, since we are in quarantine, how are we going to let our students experience that concrete uh, out of out of the classroom situation? So that's your challenge. Let us be innovative. Okay. So, example ako dito, develop generosity towards marginalized the indigenous peoples and or differently abled individuals. So, concrete experience or do. Learners visit and have a planned interaction with marginalized groups that involves giving help. Reflective observation. After the experience, they learn to reflect back on that experience, that is observe. Abstract conceptualization or think. They attempt to conceptualize what was observed, what were the needs of the group or the plans to help the group, and then they plan for another experience or how to apply to different situations with other marginalized groups. So you see the 4 steps. It's a cycle coming from experiential learning. Then we have career guidance. So here, this is more from the teacher, wherein you guide them to determine their academic, artistic, and sporting or technical vocational courses that match their talents, abilities, aptitudes, and industry needs. And therefore, that means assessment of interest, talents, abilities, and aptitudes. For junior high school values education teachers, you are very crucial here. You have a background in guidance. And so don't wait. Actually, even earlier, you can already be facilitating the students to think about where are they going to the future. Okay, knowing, of course, their own context, that many of them may not be able to go to college, but will have to work immediately after senior high school. Okay, so example, you are here, assess the learner's multiple intelligences, assess learners' interests and skills, and provide guidance in choosing the strand for senior high school. Okay, next is values clarification. Here, I think I mentioned this already in Learning to Be. The purpose is to help learners actualize values. And so learners must be taught not values per se, but how to value. Okay, how to undergo the 7 processes of valuing. So this you can teach them when they need to make a choice. Okay, and how to choose some alternatives, how to choose. Actually, you can give these as exercises. Okay, giving them choice and then looking at the consequences, then choosing freely, pricing, being happy, pricing and willing to tell everyone that was a choice, and then acting out, incorporating choices into behavior, and then acting upon one's choice consistently, repeatedly over time. So here, you can even also look at your own values, your own alternatives. For example, why are you now teaching ESP and GMRC? Did you really have alternatives? Okay, when you were still young, so you can you look into your choices and let it undergo values clarification. Okay, so how do you do this? You have, all of this, mga ESP, magaling kayo dito. Ranking values, meron kayong force choice, you do value whips, values continuum, value barometers of barometer of values. So marami ito. Okay, so you use that. That is for values clarification. So that's it. I think that is the framework. Now, before you go, I just want to have a short wrap up, no? For you, homework. Magaling ako dyan. Homework. So I want you to reflect and find out whether you are a teacher of peace. And ranking tayo. Okay, so use the scale below. 1, not at all, and then 10 to a great extent. All I want you to but you are the one who will do this. Okay? Okay. So for each sentence, rank yourself. First, are you a person of vision, capable of hope, and of imagining positive change? 1, not at all. 10, to a great extent. 5 ba? 8 ba? 3 ba? Not a transmitter of culture, but also a transformer of culture into a culture of peace. Third, act personally and professionally as an agent of change for peace, remembering that learning is change in the learners. Are you motivated by service and love of learning? 1 to 10. Do you have a profound respect for others and makes this the quality of your relationships? 1 to 10. Are you a lifelong learner? You already know what a lifelong learner means. Do you have the skills for elicitation and posing reflective questions? 1 to 10. Okay, ito yung reflection question nyo. So it's not only choosing, you need to reflect. How do you feel about your ratings? What made you feel this way? Okay? Very important in values education that you let the learners get in touch with feelings. Then, what would account for the high or low ratings in your case? And if a high rating is indicated, how is this particular characteristic manifested in terms of behavior? So it's not only in terms of that characteristic has to be manifested in terms of behavior. And if a low rating is indicated, how can you practice this particular characteristic more? Okay? So yun ang reflection nyo. So that is your homework. So let's check out. Any questions, comments, additions? What are your takeaways from this session? Okay. Good morning. Yun na yun. Okay, let me stop sharing and you may want to, nasaan na ba tayo? Yeah, stop share. Okay. Tapos. Mabilis ba masyado?